So good afternoon. How's everybody doing? Woohoo! I know. First day, 1 p.m. We're already ready for bed, right? Or drinks. Don't know which one yet. Welcome to the Local News Needs and the Role of PEG Channels. This is a 90-minute workshop, and I will be moderating this discussion today. My name is Erica Jones, and I live and work in the city of Somerville, Massachusetts, which is 4 square miles, 85,000 people and growing. And I've been in Somerville for 7 years, and prior to that, I was working in Albuquerque, New Mexico, at the organization called Quote Unquote, which was defunded and then it came up from the ashes, and it's coming back to strengthen again. So around like 11 years or so in the community media world. And I'm also the president of the Alliance for Community Media Northeast Region Board of Directors. And yeah, happy to be here. So we are joined today with 2 other wonderful presenters who we will all share some knowledge of our experiences, hopefully provide kind of like some best practices in terms of what we have been doing in the reviving or sustaining local journalism in our own respective communities. And then we will open it up for, everyone in here has their own experience, and we want to hear from everybody. We were just the ones chosen for this panel somehow, I don't know. But we all know that you're out here and you are doing some work as well. And we're all here to learn from one another. So, and we're joined with Mike Johnson, the Executive Director of CCX Media, which means Create Connected Community Experience.
There's some cards over there.
And there's some shameless plug, I love it. You have to hustle.
Yeah.
He will be speaking following my little introduction here. And then Gina Barty, the program director of Prince George's Community Television. Thank you. Thank you both for being here. So some conversation goals for today. How are PEG channels developing journalism projects to meet local information and news needs in their communities? What are steps you can take to begin supporting local news? And how do government and government-sponsored organizations support independent press? So, wonderful. Hey. Yeah, love those cards. Who in here already has a local news or a local journalism program? Who has a weekly TV show that focuses on news? Who's doing podcast journalism? Who wants to do podcast journalism? Nice, yes, ambition, this is great. Who's doing radio news? One person, okay. Are there any, just in terms of popcorning real quick, are there any, what are some major barriers that are not allowing you to produce local news in whatever form? Person power, okay. So just making the case that their message matters for them to share it.
We're at a university, we're trying to collaborate with the student paper and realizing that they can't just be stuck in print, that they go beyond print.
Yeah.
Their skill sets just or they don't want to report people.
Right. It sounds like creating the training program for that funneling is really important there. Okay. Anybody else in terms of barriers that are limiting your, yeah?
Just public access. We were at
That's a good one. So reclaiming the brand or the perception, right? The public perception. I think that's just an ongoing struggle that our industry has in general. But yeah, that's a good one.
Sometimes it's simply just not finding out what's going on until it's too late.
Right. So being on the major, the local lists as part of PR. Yeah, that was a big thing that was very helpful, was just spending some time reaching out to different city, local, PR lists and making sure that we were on those lists so that way you had the information. Okay, cool. Thank you for that. So the media studies nerd in me, I have, my academia heart was set in media studies. I want to be a professor, and then that was way too much money and time. However, I think in our field, there's a lot of media literacy that kind of influences, if you step back in terms of, who we are and what we do. I show this graphic and a little bit more media literacy stuff when I do orientations with new members to kind of get the framework of why independent media, independent journalism is really important. Media ownership sets the tone for who gets heard, right? There's 6 media giants who control everything that we see, watch, or listen to, right, in terms of American media. That's scary, right? There's lack of diversity in views, opinions, ownership. Advertisers obviously dictate a lot of the content that's created on a mainstream level. I think this sets the tone for how we kind of can come in, right, and fulfill that void. And I'll get to Sinclair Media in just a little bit about how that impacts local news, actually. So local news reporting and event coverage are incredibly key. We are all very much, I think we all are in agreement that that's the case of local news builds social cohesion and strengthens community bonds. The erosion of local news is tied to drops in civic engagement broadly. A loss of local news has been linked to drops in voting and an increase in uncontested races. Local news reveals corruption and wrongdoing and creates the building blocks for national reporting. Local news is more trust than the national news. I know for myself, I grew up in upstate New York, and there is this one, Liz Caparillo. She was my trusted news anchor, and we always had the local channel news on, and that was who we trusted. Local news is a leading indicator for tracking public health. And then on the counterpart of this slide is the numbers of just over the last decade and how local news is just constantly being, it's threatened. Newspaper revenue dropped from $60 billion to $30 billion in the course of 10 years. I can send these slides along just so you can kind of look at more data, but newsroom employment has declined 23% between 2008 and 2017. This is all coming from the Pew Research Center, which is, by the way, an excellent source of information if you are looking for data on just the state of media and journalism. Newspaper newsroom employees have declined by 45% between 2008 and 2017. And this data will play into a later part of this presentation and Somerville Media Center's partnership with a local newspaper. So as you can see, and I know I'm preaching to the choir, we have a major role we can play to combat the dwindling hyper-local news coverage and information sharing. And many of us are already doing this work, right? Storytelling, right, is at the heart of our mission. It's local information, it's civic engagement. It's just trying to figure out the best way to package it in such a way that people see you as a validated, reputable source. And I think that also goes back to, which we don't have time to discuss in this session, but repositioning your organization and revisioning and branding is incredibly critical. And if people don't know who you are by your name, that's not good. So doing some community needs assessments, which I can talk a little bit more about that. But the point is, we've already been doing the work. We have the resources. We often have the staff. In some cases, we have the staff, right? But I think some of it's also like, who are on your staff that you're hiring or that's on your team? Are they possessing all the different traits that you need to continue to be relevant, right? So I know I'm talking a little bit on the broader sense here, but there are even more concerns with our local media ecosystem. This was an incredible concern to me and just, again, reinforced exactly why we do the work that we do. And so Sinclair Broadcasting, which owns or operates more than 190 broadcast stations across the U.S., has come under increased scrutiny. I mean, it has been. and for what media watchdogs claim are efforts to push conservative viewpoints to viewers. So there's a short little video I wanted to play for y'all, just to freak you out a little bit more. And I don't have an audio thing hooked up in here, so I'm going this creative way. Whoops.
Sinclair's conservative takeover of local television is going to make this guy's path to re-election a whole lot easier. If you live in one of these states, you could be watching right-wing propaganda in your local news without even realizing it. If you haven't heard of Sinclair Broadcast Group, here's what you need to know. They're a Trump-friendly media company that is well known for pushing right-wing propaganda. They already own or operate more than 190 local stations across the country and are about to acquire Tribune Media, which owns or operates 42 broadcast stations. Trump's FCC has paused its review of the merger to help Sinclair get things in order so the deal can be approved. And this guy, Trump-appointed FCC Chairman Ajit Pai, is doing everything he can to keep the public in the dark about this deal in order to help Sinclair successfully acquire these stations and expand their reach. The FCC Inspector General even launched an internal investigation into potential improper conduct by Pai and his aides. This conservative takeover of local television is something that everyone should know about and should be extremely concerned about. Local news saves lives during weather disasters, mass shootings, and public health crises. And it's trusted much more than national news outlets. Just take a look at these numbers from Pew. And it's proven to lead to more civic engagement, like voting in elections. Sinclair knows and understands this, and here's how they want to change local television news.
I believe sanctuary cities are a shield for illegal immigrants to stay in this country illegally and to commit other crimes.
And that was just one example of a Sinclair must-run segment. So as the name implies, every news station that Sinclair owns is required to air these segments that John Oliver once described as
beneath the journalistic standards of Breitbart.
These must-runs, which are basically right-wing propaganda, are often purposely mixed in with real news to confuse viewers into believing that they're just part of normal local news. The company's ties with Trump run even deeper, though. Boris Epshteyn, a former staffer of Trump's, is Sinclair's chief political analyst. We talked to resident research fellow Pam Vogel, who knows a lot about Boris Epshteyn.
Boris Epshteyn went from working at the Trump White House to almost immediately working for Sinclair. And now he produces these must-run segments on an almost daily basis that just support Trump no matter what he does. He's defended Trump in some of his most racist moments, and he loves to attack other media for being too critical of Trump.
Nonsense.
Even though he has the charisma of a wet paper towel, it doesn't matter. He's still reaching audiences who are watching and trusting their local news.
You might expect to see this type of misinformation, say on Fox News. But if you watch a local news station, even if it's ABC, NBC, CBS, or the CW, you could already be watching a Sinclair station without even knowing it. This is because local stations are run by whoever owns them, and Sinclair is snatching these up left and right. Also, Sinclair is forcing local news anchors to read from a script that condemns
irresponsible, one-sided news stories.
Irresponsible, one-sided news stories.
Irresponsible, one-sided news stories. Irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing our country.
Sinclair has been trying to influence political outcomes for years now. For example, in 2008, this ad went around linking then Senator Barack Obama to Weather Underground founder Bill Ayers.
Why would Barack Obama be friends with someone who bombed the Capitol and is proud of it?
Sinclair pushed this ad in swing states like Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. And more recently, they fully backed Donald Trump's run for the presidency by agreeing to broadcast more favorable coverage as long as they got increased access to him.
We should want our president to succeed because that means success for our country as a whole.
And it's about to get worse. With Sinclair about to acquire Tribune, more people around the country are going to be exposed to these must-runs. This will put Sinclair way out in front as the largest provider of local TV news in the country, adding some of the nation's biggest media markets, such as LA, Chicago, Miami, and Philadelphia. It's no coincidence that many of these stations are in key battleground states. Conservatives are changing the local media landscape with huge consequences and implications for the future of this country. And that's why it's never been more important to know who owns your local station.
So has anybody seen that video before? There's, I can show this if you want, but There's another video of like that clip that they showed of the news anchors doing the must-run segments. And when I do new member orientations, again, I have in the beginning, like who does new member orientations for people who join their organization? If you want, I'm sure yours is amazing as well, but if you want just to see, I'm happy to share our presentation. But I think it's critical to inform anyone who comes through that building about what's at stake, right? And by emphasizing the role that is being undercut by national news efforts and also local news efforts, and how you can play a role in filling that void is it's critical. And guess what? Elections are coming up. And who uses their media centers for engaging with local and statewide and even national politicians? We need, and this is huge, and obviously, especially to Mike's point earlier, the engagement outreach to Congress is even more critical now more than ever. So having those candidate profiles, or however you do those engagement opportunities, will help to strengthen just that reminder to them that, like, hey, we are an important asset to our community. Look at us and look what we're providing to you. Again, I know I'm preaching to the choir here. So strength in numbers, I also show this map of just, our vast network of community media centers, because it's impressive. Like, we're a network of, people from across the country in this room right now, and then this is a larger sampling, and it's so, it's empowering, to show this as a visual to people who get involved with your organization, so they can kind of get out of their bubble of like, hi, we are in city of X, or wherever you are, right? And look at this network. Like, this is a strong network of independent, media and journalism. And it's just a reminder to be proud, right? To be proud of the work that you are already doing, and that there are ways that you can expand on the work that you're doing. So how can your organization be a part of this movement? How can you sustain a community journalism program, produce more compelling storytelling media, strategies, ideas, partnerships? I'm going to just dive in a little bit more about, the work that we're doing at Somerville Media Center. So we are a nonprofit media center, the oldest one in the state of Massachusetts, been in existence since 1983. And we are home to Scat TV Channel 3, Boston Free Radio, the Somerville Neighborhood News, our youth media program, and obviously, like many of us, so many deeply rooted community partnerships and collaborations. To focus this discussion on Somerville Neighborhood News, this was a program that was launched 5 years ago by a former staff member, and it was, fully backed by our board of directors. We had a fully funded staff position, and they managed, and they had journalism backgrounds, so we specifically hired someone who had a background in journalism, which is important. It's not necessary. However, it is important to have like some concepts and some like ethical understandings of journalism. And they also managed our relationships with the local universities and the broadcast journalism students. Every semester there'd be about 4 different interns who would help to carry out weekly, news packages, putting out about 2 to 3 per week on relevant, timely issues. Not breaking news, because we definitely don't have the capacity to do that. And just kind of building the presence, right? And people, because of the falling nature of the local journalism scene in Somerville, because it is on the verge of being a news desert, we knew we had a role to play, right? And when we did our strategic plan and redesign about that same time, it came out that the Somerville community felt very concerned about the future of local journalism and what was at stake. So we had some insight to help influence. We needed to launch Somerville Neighborhood News. Variety of topics from affordable housing and development to MBTA infrastructure to like the soft, community profiles that we're doing, person on the street. We have a plethora of stuff on the library. Now, realities, right? Here we are, flash forward to less than a year ago. The board of directors, in lieu of a lot of our conversations today, decided we need to cut funding. We need to offset our balance so we're not in the dark too much, and we're going to cut this position. So it's a sad situation. We had to let go of a staff member. There was an effort to, really kind of work within the existing staff to take on now this role of not dropping a brand, right? Somerville Neighborhood News was part of our new branding. If you look in the bottom right, that was SNN. So it's like, shoot, we can't just let this go silent. So my colleague and I really felt like we have to figure out strategic ways to keep our branding alive. Has anybody been in a similar situation? Okay, so a few of you in the room can empathize, some of you can sympathize, some of you are maybe on the verge of fearing that this situation could happen, right? But it's still justifying the existence of why is this important? So we tapped into things that we already knew: connections, partnerships, skills, resources, and the bullet point of things that I'm gonna run through here. The first one being community needs assessments. So this past February, we held a community forum as a way to engage our vast, transient community in Somerville about what things piss them off. What do they want to learn more about? What's not being covered? We knew we had a captivated audience, we just had to organize it. So Somerville Media Center and the Boston Institute for Nonprofit Journalism, who we work very closely with and we have been for the last 5 years, organized a community summit. And again, it was an event to bring in area journalists, because there's so many freelance journalists that you may or may not even be aware of. Artists, activists, nonprofit organizations, neighborhood networks, main streets organizations. And we just wanted to have basically a forum where they stood up, they had 2 minutes on a mic, and they talked about things that mattered to them. Now, why do most people have programs on your TV station or your radio station? Because they think people want to listen to. They know, they feel deep down that they have something they care about and they want to share and they want to be heard. So we knew creating the platform, which all of you could, look and see if this is something that might be suited for your own community, organize a summit that you can work to learn about what are the issues and leverage that in a way down the road, which I'll get to. So we had over 100 residents, 20 different community groups attended. It was a packed house. It was really, really impressive. Again, I emphasize it was a cold February Saturday afternoon, and 100 people came out. That speaks numbers to people caring about they want to be heard. And there I am preaching the community media gospel to the packed room, saying, do you want your voice to be heard? Join Somerville Media Center, because we all do the hustle, right? You got your cards over there. You got to hustle it wherever you are. And so many people had no idea we even existed, because our community is changing so much that we're just kind of complacently thinking, oh yeah, everybody knows about Somerville Media Center. No, that's not true. There's so many new people who come in and then they learn about the resources that you have, and they're just blown away. So never see, an opportunity as, just always leverage the position that people don't know about you. So some post-summit opportunities and outcomes. We looked at coordinating free community journalism workshops with Binge and targeted the attendees at the summit to come to this. So we already had ahead of game, we had a list of 6 different upcoming workshops. We handed out flyers at the event. It was a captivated audience. We're in the process of launching what's called the Somerville News Garden and launching a neighborhood school. That's very much still in the works of being determined, but a lot of ambition. Outreach to new residents and community groups to attend our orientations and media classes, and then looked at expanding our collaborative journalism efforts. So training and workshops. We're already creating an entry space, right, for people to gain the skills and the appropriate training. I feel like we're all on that. We're crushing that game. However, it's when you get into the journalism, venue, and you're a little nervous, you don't feel confident, and maybe you don't have staff with that knowledge and expertise. That's where these collaborations, whether it's with local universities, a nonprofit news organization, which obviously depending on where you're located, that's going to impact that. High school broadcast departments, and leverage those partnerships for them to lead the workshops, because we recognize we can't do everything, right? I think that's just, sometimes it's hard to say no, it's hard to accept that you can't do everything. And some people can do it better than you. So in this case, we knew the Binge team, you know, and they got grants. They got grants to do these workshops for free. So they were just excited to have a community partner to write into their grant and to have a venue to lead these workshops, and that it led into a tangible media making experience. So we had these workshops February, April, June, and one in September. And yeah, the end goal is to just have more people, A, aware of our resources, and B, becoming informed, independent media makers, and ideally producing journalistic content that meets standards of just like the basic, you know, journalistic code of conduct, and just, you know, different like writing standards, and there are some like, you know, things that you should be aware of. And there's so much happening in Somerville that it's just like critical to get more people on the ground. The Somerville News Garden was another thing that came out of the summit. And this is aimed at strengthening and expanding the news ecology of Somerville to help reverse the city's current slide towards becoming a news desert. So again, SMC and Binge are teaming up, and we're already engaging our volunteers who are so, it's amazing, like, it's just like unearthing this, this volunteer base of people who just are really passionate about things that are going on in their community. And the Somerville News Garden, some goals is to create and maintain an easy-to-use Somerville PR wire, where individuals and community organizations and businesses can post tips and event notices. So like to your point, Karen, you know, maybe that doesn't exist right yet, but you could, you know, or maybe you have an intern who could help lead the effort on creating the Methuen PR wire, right? And it could help increase local news coverage. News clinics, so just regular meetups where people can talk to trained volunteers about how to get their stories covered in the local press. A lot of people, even nonprofits, this is a great skill, or this is a great like a paid production opportunity, but collaborating with nonprofits about how to speak to local media. And if you feel confident that you can share workshops on that, that's something, that's kind of another organizational side hustle. Researching all the ways that people can get local news in Somerville, and then working to fill gaps by creating or assisting the creation of new social media boards and new outlets in the city. That could be just a Facebook group, right? Or a Google Groups listserv. A neighborhood media school to train people in reporting skills that they can use to cover their own community. And then obviously through all this, cross-promoting on social media networks. And Mike will actually speak a lot more to social media marketing and engagement. Another thing that we were doing that we kind of realized we really want to get back in the swing of this, but network journalism, right? So we, a few years ago, partnered up with Binge and Malden and Brookline and Cambridge to collaborate on a regional news show. And we worked on a theme, because there's, you know, affordable housing is a theme that's like felt by, I don't know, a lot of different communities. And we had a theme for the show, and then everyone submitted a segment, and then we edited it together and then had it as a news digest show, and we aired it on all the channels. We uploaded it to all the places for other media centers to download, and we would get around like, I think like 30 to 35 different downloads from TV stations in the area, even to like New Jersey, which was random, but I was like, cool, they want to air this because the topics, you know, they cross town boundaries, which is great. And so, yeah, so this was, you know, this had a good 2-year run. We were in a year hiatus. We still are in a hiatus, but I still felt this was important just to kind of share, as many of you, and Mike will talk to, you know, consolidating, which is a scary word in the kind of corporate sense. But when you're all, you know, when you're so near each other, if you are in that position, there's often opportunities for grant funding partnerships that you can look at. And I mean, I know Joellen's in the room, and raise your hand again, talk to her about grant funding opportunities for local journalism, all right? Because she's like, she's brains galore behind that. But you know, these are just ways you have to create the projects in order for them to get funded. This was a segment we did about the dangers of like the bicycling communities and looking at like new bike safety laws on like a state level and on city levels. And then working with local newspapers. So this is something that, again, as we're looking at like, okay, we don't have a staff position and, you know, we have this great partnership with Binge and what else can we do? So this wonderful, ambitious young woman, fresh out of college, I think she's like 22, 23, she is the lone person for the Somerville Journal, okay? And she is out there like covering so much like content in the community. It's unreal. And I had a meeting with her. I said, please don't burn out. Please don't leave Somerville because you are filling a service that like the previous people just weren't. And so I said, how can we help you? So we do, right now it's just a monthly show, but we're now reinventing the wheel. She already has these great stories written. It's a multimedia, you know, collaboration. We create the content. My colleague Dave, who's amazing with graphics, came up with this like ESPN look to the graphics, so you're watching and you're following. It's just like you can create the elevated content, right? And we create the video, she cross-shares it on her website. They get so much traffic, so it helps to bring people back to our website, and it's a beautiful, harmonious relationship. And so again, there's a little bit of some time and energy in the upfront, right? And I think, you know, for our in-house productions, we do editorialize, you know, we want our stuff to look good as much as possible and to the point of being taken seriously. I think that's a huge thing that it's a challenge for us, right? And whatever, you know, we want to empower our members to make whatever content they want, but if you kind of create your own code of conduct, so to speak, for your internal productions, I think that you can always kind of refer back to that for like quality control. Facial recognition technology, that is a topic that has national you know, just value right now. There's a lot of people talking about this, a lot of concerns raised around the privacy of facial recognition. We have a local city councilor who, San Francisco just banned facial recognition technology, and Somerville is going to be, hopefully, the second city to ban it as well, because there's a lot of racial bias that happens and discrimination. We took this national context story and made it on a local, you know, level, and we just did this on Tuesday, and we busted it out because we have this template that allows us to kind of really get stuff out in a timely manner. So again, we collaborated with Julia from the Somerville Journal. She came in, she came up with all the questions, we looked at them together, and it's just an easy-ish way to leverage your relationships, right? And it all helps to, you know, high level of shareability, so your social media engagement is, you know, it always gets shared, right? So what's the quote in your presentation with the shareability? Like never gets old or something, like it just the gift that keeps on giving. So these are just like, you know, a couple different ways. To the point of press releases, who gets press releases from different organizations in your community? And sometimes you're like, oh, so much information. Sometimes too much information, right? So City of Somerville right now is in like a construction like war zone. It's just like every point of entry into Somerville is under construction, like mayhem. So we get these wonderful emails from this communications department, and this is a way of taking traditional communications and making it into new media content, right? So they send out these elaborate newsletters, which I have no idea who's actually reading sometimes. Why, we are. And we now have our intern, he's the voice of the construction updates. And so we just, you know, every week we put out these video versions of the construction updates. And people love it. And also, it kind of pissed off the city of Somerville's government access channel, because they're like, why don't we think of that? We're like, sorry, we're going to acquire you soon. No, I'm just kidding. I wish. I don't think anyone's in the room here. Just kidding. Oh, we are being filmed. Just kidding, city of Somerville. So, you know, and actually, and I'm just joking, I'm being sarcastic. But they did reach out and they said, hey, thanks for doing this. Could you actually share this link in your video about signing up for our newsletters? And I was like, sure, of course. So this is just an easy way of, utilizing, you're not creating the stories, right? This is like, you don't have to sweat the hard stuff in a way, because we had a shift, we had a pivot, and we didn't want to lose our brand, but we wanted to make sure that we stayed relevant and stayed in people's radars. Because if all else, goes down, local journalism is a place for funding and for relevance. And then on just kind of like another note, we collaborate with the Free Speech TV network. Anybody run Free Speech TV on there? Cool, yeah. So they're a great independent, independent media organization, satellite dish. And if you don't run it, you should look into running it because they have some really awesome, like diverse news content and just storytelling stuff. We've been getting paid to produce the Jeff Santos show. And yeah, it's a nationally distributed show, millions of households, and it's a great relationship building with Free Speech TV for one. And it also has leveraged like the possibility of conversation to show like other productions that we're doing at Somerville Media Center through their network. And it's something that I actually want to like spend some more time on thinking about maybe how we could, on a larger level of like ACM and the Free Speech TV network, to talk about how can we do more independent journalism sharing on their network. And they're so open, right? Which is great. And sometimes these smaller relationships help to build these larger relationships. So hopefully we can see where that comes to fruition. Yeah, so again, SNN scaled back but consistent. These are, we were already doing stuff as is, like we started to rebrand things like our arts events calendar and our community profile of spotlights to be under the SNN brand. Just kind of like, recreating the visibility. And then something happening in Massachusetts, which is really important, I think actually earlier today, Dig, Boston, Binge, SMC, and other organizations were at the second hearing for the MA Journalism Commission Bill. So this is an act establishing a commission to study journalism in underserved communities, okay? And they're tasked to conduct a comprehensive, non-binding study relative to communities underserved by local journalism in Massachusetts. So this is interesting. A way to leverage relationships on a state level. And apparently there was enough activism and momentum from people in the community who care about the dying journalism field and worked with their relationships with state elected officials to do a commission to study. These happen a lot in different, like on different state levels. Where it goes is sometimes, they just approve the funding to do the commission, basically. Hopefully it'll come out to say, like as an outcome, that we're going to set aside a bunch of money to fund local journalism and we'll all get a piece of the pie. We have no idea, but at this point, this is just a legislative effort that's going on for you to maybe just consider if you have relationships in your state about looking at, underserved communities and the impact of how dwindling local journalism is affecting that or not providing coverage at all. So, okay, why is all this important? Filling news gap, hyperlocalism, putting the spotlight on stories that otherwise go uncovered, amplifies voices of underserved communities, informs, educates, moves people to action, workforce development, training opportunities, making a true impact and staying relevant. So that's my presentation. I'm gonna move it on now to Mr. Mike Johnson. Then we'll open it up. We'll open it up for questions and stuff.
Sure. Good job.
All right, sir. Here you go.
So we're going to try this,
So let me...
see if this works or not. What is CCX Media? There we go. Check. Can everybody hear me? I don't like to be tethered to the podium. I like to walk around. I'm a little bit of a hyper speaker. If you talk to Brad or Chad Johnson would attest to that. Welcome. This is really impressive. This is a very big crowd. I have a lot of slides, and I'm going to whip through them. I'm going to talk very fast, and but hopefully you're going to leave here today with a lot of knowledge about local news or community media and also walk out of here knowing that people actually do truly watch this stuff, okay? Because years and years ago, I had somebody comment like, who watches this programming? Like, nobody watches. Well, I'm here today to tell you that's just simply not true. And so it's very important to kind of keep a record of everything. So I want to get right into the presentation, but I do want to say, for those of you who sat in the federal legislation seminar this morning, Mike Wassner was talking about, hey, if you don't have a good connection with your cities, your local government officials, you know, you could be in some trouble in the future here. So I'm here to say that we do have a very good working relationship with our local officials. So a little bit about CCX Media. I'm sorry about the craziness and how this thing is programmed. I was hoping to do cuts only, and we ran out of time, and so now you're going to get all this strange things here. But anyway, we're 100% local content. It's all local, hyper-local content. Producing, aggregating, and sharing hyper-local news content is one of the many things that we do. We do have some like little postcards, and I have some extra ones here that you can take. And nobody needs to take any pictures of these slides. They're all going to be available on the system. That'll be uploaded to the ACM site. That is what we do. We serve 9 cities, about 340,000 people, 130,000 households. Our founders had one statement in the very early days, late 70s, early 80s. They say, we have stories to tell, and they're not being told. And what we do at our organization is we tell stories. So we are 100% all about making connections in the community. And everybody also wants to know about the channel, so I'll give you my little channel speech and then move on. But we have one local origination channel, which is a simulcast HD and SD channel. That's our professional staff, and we inherited this channel from the cable company in the mid-'80s, and we're able to advertise on it. So this is going to be our way of bringing in funding in the future. We have. In the past, we've sold several $100,000 in advertising for this local origination channel. And if you can't do advertising, you can certainly sell sponsorships for news. We have a couple of public access channels, one HD/SD simulcast, and then one an SD only. And then we narrowcast to 9 cities. It's channel 16, which is narrowcast to 9 specific cities on that channel. And then some educational channels. We need to serve everyone in our communities, not just 40 to 50% of the traditional cable subscribers. So if anybody says, well, you really shouldn't be doing things on the internet, BS. You need to be out there and everywhere, because there are, like in our system, Comcast is our main player. They sell internet services. Those internet subscribers should be able to see our local content, and that's why we put just about everything we do on the internet. Don't assume that, I often hear people say, yeah, a lot of people watch our shows, you know, on the channels. Well, how do you know that? How do you know how many people are watching? I always like shake my head at that. How do you know they're watching? What does a lot mean? I mean, what is that? What is that to you? What's a lot? What's a lot of viewers? So just something to think about. But in the world of the kinds of things we're doing, a lot could mean anything. I mean, like if we have 10 views on a little clip, that might be a big thing for people who have never been engaged with our organization. Versus sometimes we might get 200,000 views, or something that goes viral to 300,000 or 400,000 views. So, but on traditional viewing, just be careful about thinking that you have this major audience out there, because you know, in terms of on the channel, you may or may not. So we have one main brand and 4 sub-brands. This is the main brand, CCX Media, because Erica wanted me to just touch on branding a little bit. So CCX Media basically stands for Connected Community Experience. This is a rebranding we did a couple of years ago. We were known as just simply Northwest Community Television, Channel 12, and then Northwest Community Television Public Access. So we have these 4 sub-brands, News, Sports, Cities, and Create. And this is some of the branding that's on a little flyer at a parade that we had out there. And our little motto now is we don't care where people see our content, our news content, as long as they see it. We don't care. And that's our goal. That's what we've been pushing most recently, is pushing this content out as much as possible. It's not like the old days, sitting around the black and white TV, the family appointment viewing, Everybody is multitasking and doing many different things. People, for the most part, unless it's like a live sporting event, don't have time to do appointment viewing. It's all about TV everywhere, you know, whether it's an Apple TV or, you know, on this nice little, I guess my phone's there. I watch most of the content from our organization right on my phone or sometimes the TV in my office. This is where you can find us. You can find us on cable. You know, that's in the early days, that's the only place you could find us. And when we first started out in the early 80s. But you can find us on YouTube, Twitter, live streaming, our mobile app, email links. This is a big thing. We use Gov Delivery. If you want a free system, you can use like MailChimp. We have over 3,000, or close to over 3,000 subscribers now on this system of stakeholder groups, people who are interested in getting email blasts from all of our local content. They can pick and choose what they want. Oh, I just want to see sports from your organization. I just want to see information from my specific city, or I want to just see things about park and rec programs. It's all on there through these email links. Of course, on the website, Facebook, Granicus, which is, we do all of our city programming on Granicus, the city websites, school websites, and now we're on Over the Top. If you went to the Tightrope booth, you'll see our over-the-top brand. We insisted that if we're going to be on over-the-top, we wanted a branding of our logo. We didn't want people to have to jump through hoops to see us. And now we're working on a Roku over-the-top app as well. Here's our mobile app here. And like I said, I'm going to talk fast. One of the other things we're doing, and I think you'll get more of this on a Friday session with Dave Kaiser, who's one of my coworkers at our station, talking about building relationships and partnerships and being key to your cities. This is just a little, we have a branded app. On every city that we serve, we have co-branded our app. And so if somebody clicks that on in the city of Robbinsdale, they will just see Robbinsdale content that we have uploaded for the cities. The cities do not have to do anything, nothing. We do all the work and it's all there for them with that kind of content. Erica touched on this. So the expanding news desert, there's 1,800 newspapers lost in the past 14 years. Just recently, I got this stat just a couple of days ago, 3,000 people in the news business were laid off in the first 5 months of 2019. That's significant. So, but we view this as an opportunity because we say that everyone has a story to tell. This is a little ad we put in one of the NATOA brochure. But everyone has a story to tell, and we have been sharing thousands of stories since we started in 1982. Thousands. And the bottom line is these stories would not be told if we weren't there, and like with you being there. You're all telling stories in one form or another, and it's important that you tell your community's story or help let them tell the story somehow, some way. Because like I said, we have different departments. We have a big commitment to traditional public access in our operation where people are doing, all kinds of things. But, so these stories are being told every single day on our system. We have that 25-year commitment, like I mentioned. We commit to cover people news, cities and local government, education, business, nonprofits and volunteers, local lawmakers, diversity. In fact, we have two of the cities in our service area are the most diverse cities, or at least in the top 5 diverse cities beyond Minneapolis and St. Paul. So that is a big issue in our area, and so it's important that we cover that. Employment issues, transportation, public safety, aging. Aging is a big deal now. People are getting older, what's happening in life cycle housing, all those types of things, and development, redevelopment. I'm here to tell you too that, so we've been doing a live daily news program for nearly 25 years, live. We just stopped doing it live a couple of months ago. We still do a full news program, but we're not doing it live. We're able to take some staff resources and reallocate them more into doing more storytelling and more things that matter versus trying to make that live production come together. Because what is most important is all the on-demand elements of our program. Our program, the individual stories have more value than the program as a whole. When you can use the term slice and dice it and send them out to the right people at the right time. These are just some examples of some segments that we've done. We call them franchise segments, like Business Matters, this School Spotlight, been very popular. I'll talk about in a moment. Standout students. Again, there's more good news in this world than bad news. I mean, you just get jaded by watching some of the local national news and your local news stations. It gets a little depressing after. And not to say that we don't cover bad news. There's bad news. But I'm a believer there's more good news than bad news. There's more good people in this world than, whatever, nasty people. There's good people out there. So why not tell that story? We do some arts with this weekend showcase. Things happening in the summertime is a big deal in Minnesota. Summer camps. And then one of my favorite segments is this little off-the-clock thing where we feature people, like we had a mayor in one of our cities who likes to drag race. This is like a 65 or 70-year-old mayor. She has this souped-up Dodge Challenger, and she loves to race cars. It's amazing. And then we did a story feature on a policeman who takes a big, strong, sergeant or assistant police chief who's out there with kids fishing on the weekends. It's like to show them like what they're like when they're off the clock, so to speak. And then we do series. We did policing. Building trust with cops in the community. That was a series we did. Road construction. Silver Tsunami was a whole thing about aging, the teen worker shortage, dialogue on diversity. Like I said, diversity is a big issue. We're talking about it, and we're bringing together stories that affect that, and then some things on medical conditions, and then our libraries. And some specials beyond that. Like I said, I'm going to whip through all these things. We did a full thing on mental health locally and where the local resources are, young teens committing suicide, that type of thing, and trying to help with that. And then a special program about a park that was developed in one of our smaller cities. Election night coverage, we've been doing that for 25 years. We allow every single candidate to come in. We call it candidate minutes or profiles where they can come in and get time and be on the air. We play those. All on the channel, on the internet, everywhere you can find it, a little holiday train segment. That's kind of a neat thing where they bring in and people bring food to the food shelves, and it's through the Canadian Pacific Railroad that does this every year. Anyway, I want to talk quickly about the power of sharing content because this is important in news. I mean, if you're going to produce something, we had a saying in our conference room, if it's worth producing, it's worth promoting. We hung that up in our conference room in that was about 1985. And now it's like, if it's worth producing, it's worth putting out and sharing on the internet. We've come a long way. In the old days, we need to make a VHS copy and send it to somebody, and that took forever. But the power of social media is amazing. So here's just like an example. So we do these standout student segments. So you make sure, get the link to the student, the teacher, school principal, district office, ask them to put that on their Facebook page. Now, this graph is not made for PowerPoint. It's kind of like, whoa, that's information overload. Mike, what are you doing here? This is just to show you that, okay, this is just within 1 year, and I talk about the gift that keeps on giving. So these were total views. The right side is Facebook, the left side is YouTube. So on the YouTube, we had 92,862 views, and on Facebook, we had 98,691 for a total of 191,000 views on these school profiles. People love their schools. I served on a school board. They are passionate about their schools. So we make these segments, we give them to the school district. The school districts, embed them or natively upload them to their sites, and that's where the power of the sharing and it's the gift that keeps on giving. And so I would be willing to bet, now this was done at the end of 2018, that 191,000 is probably maybe 230, 240,000 now, because there's those things are sitting out there. And like I said, there's the famous quote that Erica just loved. Talk very quickly about search engine optimization. I'm not a specialist at all. We have somebody on staff that does all this, but our news department, it's super, super important for you to make sure your content has keywords in it when you're putting things up on, when you're putting your videos up there, to have all the keywords that people use for searching, because then you're going to get more views in your content. And there's people in fact, there might even be a session going on now with John Hauser or was earlier, who talks about these things. because your engagement could increase tenfold if you put the right words in there. You know, like if we do a story about Erica Jones, well, first off, you want to put Erica Jones, and you put Somerville TV, and you know, all these things, oh, former board member of ACM, all the key little words, so when you're searching, you can know everything you want to know about Erica Jones. Anyway, every click is an engagement, every single one. You need to justify your existence, so you should really report to your stakeholders. We report to all of our cities, all of our board members and cable commission. These are just some raw numbers, and again, these are hard to see, but when you get this, you can download this, of course. This is the Gov delivery that I was talking about. Here at the end of 2018, we had 2,775 people subscribe to this, considered like a MailChimp service where you're getting these things. And that is driving viewership because they're getting content delivered right to their email box of all the things that they said that they're interested in. So then they could subscribe to multiple things. But all I'm saying is the trajectory is going up on this. YouTube on demand, number of views. So in 2018, we had, oh, that didn't come out right, did it? Is it 4,412,000? We had, at the end of 2018, we had 16,118 subscribers to our YouTube channel and 18,000 videos. So we're even uploading 1-minute clips on things, and it's all sitting there. You can go to our website, you can look at, you can go to YouTube, you can see all the stuff we have on there, you can see all the different numbers. Right now, as of July, I went on there and looked, we currently have 20,000 videos on YouTube and currently 18,900 subscribers. So the number is growing. Average website visits per month. We had a dip when we did the rebranding, so it took us a little while, and now we shot back up, and now I think we're on track to double the 16,000 engagements on our website in any given month, so we might get up to over 30,000 website views. Again, that's engagement with your organization. Here's Facebook. How Facebook has grown. We really didn't do too much of it in the early days, but we have 2 Facebook pages. One is for like news, sports, and some of our municipal things, and then Create, which is traditional public access. So there, between the two, as of at the end of 2018, we had 4,960 Facebook followers, and now we have, let's see, a total of 6,687. So again, the number just keeps going up and up and up, and then we're now experimenting with our individual cities where we are natively uploading content, news content, to their websites. And so and we just started doing this year. We started in January, and you could see this is all like icing on the cake here. Between January and April, we had 156,000 views that we may have never had we not natively uploaded these things to our city's sites. So because they're always going to have more potential viewers of your content because they have a big population base. Again, we have 340,000 people, divided amongst all these cities. That's very powerful. So this is just from our own little Facebook, 499, which is a lot, don't get me wrong, but this is like the icing on the cake had we never done that, and Dave he might even be in our room here, he was responsible for getting that going, and it's just absolutely amazing. So this is just 1 month alone, I broke it down by city, okay? So the cities want us to do it for them. We posted these various videos on their sites, and you could see the views, and that's 1 month, 69 posts, 55,000 views. That's engagement, and we don't care if it's 2 people watching or 1,000 people watching. So it all depends on what they're interested in, and that's the power of Facebook and social media. You have to be there if you're not there. And then year-to-date Facebook posts, let's see, what is this one? Okay, this is, so this is the total of uploading to the city. So again, up to this point, there's been 267,000 views on posts to the actual city sites themselves. And then we do some Twitter here. I'm not going to get into all those numbers, but those numbers keep going up. And then we do this every year in our annual report. You can go online, or you can download, look at all of our annual reports are on our website at ccxmedia.org. You can see how our numbers have grown. In 2017, we had 4,264,000 views across all platforms, and we had in 2018, 5,308,000, and I know we're going to be well over 6 million at the end of 2019, easily. Content engagement will be critical to our long-term financial stability from our standpoint, because that's where we're going to, we're going to bring, we have eyeballs now, so to speak, right? Like if you want to think of it in terms of a traditional TV operation. Okay, so we know we're going to get some support from our local business community, but in return, we're going to give them eyeballs to our local content. So when you have this kind of engagement and this kind of viewership, you could get you could get sponsored by organizations, say, so beyond the feel good, yeah, we want to sponsor you because we care about you. That's fine. But now you could go to them and say, look, we also have, it could be a small, take whatever we do, we're a large system, take it and scale it down. Just say, hey, we have 300 views or 300 people watching this thing in a very small town. Well, that's a big thing. So a local business may want to support you that way. So the bottom line in terms of all these stories, if we don't tell the stories, who will? Because just about every story we've told would have never been told elsewhere. I mean, we have done stories where the local broadcast stations who have monitored our content have done the same stories. Well, hey, we'll take that as flattery, right? They like what we did, so they did the same thing. But if we don't do it, no one else will. There's my contact information. It certainly will be on the presentation, and we'll save the questions for later. Thank you very much.
Then now we have Gina coming up. Let me grab your presentation. Here you are, Gina.
Great, terrific. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm in a little time warp. I'm still in East Coast time, so please forgive me. I feel like I just got off the plane. I am the program director for Prince George's Community Television. Our brand name is CTV Channel 76. We get out in the field, we're known as CTV. We get mixed up with Canadian television a lot, but we are about 7 minutes right outside of Washington, D.C. Erica kind of gave us a charge to answer a couple of questions. I'm not only the programming director, but I'm one of the anchors for our news, for our daily live news program that we do at the station. Like my colleague, we still do a daily live news program. And it's a little different. I think one of the gentlemen out in the field is our program in our news department. We have probably, I'm not sure about some of the other, I know a lot of our staffing is different here, but we have about 8 seasoned journalists that work in our news department. And so to get in our news department, you have to have a degree in broadcast journalism or you have been in the field. We have some veterans that are Emmy Award-winning reporters that are looking to break into the 10th market. So Washington, D.C. is the 10th market. And so one of the things that, that we are so blessed to get is that we get people from all over because our news department is really highly acclaimed. And so we have really used our news department in terms of providing, meeting the needs for the community. We are the second largest county in the state of Maryland. And we're seen not only in Prince George's County, but in Montgomery County, which is Montgomery County and Prince George's County are the 2 largest counties in the state of Maryland. So we reach over about 1.3 million viewers through Comcast and Verizon Fios. Because of our news, we call our news program kind of our flagship program that really addresses the local needs. I just met one of my colleagues earlier today, and we have a little combination of both. We still do the if it bleeds, it leads. Because we do have journalists that are either coming out of college looking to break into the field, or we have seasoned journalists that have been in some of the other local affiliates and looking to break into the DC market. So they still want to cover that hard news. Because we are right there in Washington, DC, we are able to cover a lot of different things. We all have beats. So we have a Capitol Hill beat, we're in Annapolis, so we are covering everything. One thing that really sets us apart from, I think, all the local affiliates, and just like Erica and Mike was saying, and I don't want to be too redundant, but local news still matters. One of the things that I'm really proud about is that you turn to our station, everything that you will see will be about the county. We do cover, some of the big stories that the NBC, CBS, and things because it's happening in our county. But we were out there, we're covering the school, what's happening in the schools, we're covering what's happening in local sports, we're covering things that are happening in Annapolis with our delegation in Annapolis. So I think it's really critical, like Mike was saying, is that you get connected with all your political figures. This is just kind of a little bit, if I can turn the mic down, okay, of our news.
Good evening, this is CTV News for Tuesday, June 18th. I'm Melissa Wright.
And I'm Patricia Vallon. Thank you for joining us this evening. Well, the search for a new chief executive for the Prince George's School District is over, and the new leader is a familiar face. Interim CEO Monica Goldson has officially been named permanent CEO, ending months of speculation about who would follow her predecessor, Dr.
So I really just kind of show that just because we usually don't lead with national stories. We try to very much keep it very local. And our reporters are out there covering everything from,
Here, I got you.
Okay.
It was this one, right?
Yeah, but I want to go to this next slide. Great. So we are out there covering everything from education, local politics, health awareness and information, community events, community activists, nonprofits, small businesses, community leaders, MOSs. I think Erica said something earlier about being out there on the street, talking to the residents of your community, finding out what's pissing them off. What do they love? I love that word. And then we also sponsor PIO open houses. So we are very connected to our local government. Not only our local government, but all those different branches that I was just talking about. And so we, probably every 6 months, we hold kind of a meet and greet breakfast where we bring everybody from the government. We bring every branch of our local government as well as our state government, all their PIO officers. We want them to know who we are. And so we invite them in, you give them a little food, and you form a relationship with them. All of our reporters are there. We have a news director. Our news director is there. Our producers are there as well. And we let them know that we are available for them. We want to tell their story. We want to tell that story that maybe your NBC, CBS affiliate is not telling. And yep, they still do like those long press releases, but we get personal phone calls. And so I think that's a really good way for you guys to start connecting, even if you only have a house of 2 people. So even though, we have a fully staffed news department with probably about 12 people, it started just with 2 people. And it started in a magazine style. I think me and Karen were talking about that. But we were still covering those same things. And instead of it doing daily every day, we were just doing our news magazine once a week. But again, those 2 people that were in our news department came with journalism degrees or have been in the field for a while. or are in a higher learning institution. We have a great relationship with all of our universities, University of Maryland, Howard University, American University. We're just surrounded by great universities that have really strong broadcast journalism programs, and we feed from them. If they want to get into the business, I go out and I speak to all the universities, all the community colleges every year, and I go out and I speak to all the high school students, usually starting in the 9th grade. And I let them know this is what you need to do if you're interested in getting into broadcast journalism, or if you're interested in getting into production, because it's not just about telling the story. We need camera operators that can actually shoot the story. So we have a really good staff of photojournalists as well that actually go out and shoot with our reporters. We bring in, like Mike, we bring in all the local candidates. One thing I think that everybody can attest to is that when it's political season, they love the cameras. Utilize that. Utilize that. So we make sure that we hear both sides. So we spend probably about 2 months bringing in every candidate. Well, we reach out to every candidate, whoever wants to come back, and we do an on-set interview with each one of them. And we let them we interview them, let them know, the residents, who they are, what their platform is. And we kind of get down and dirty too. If they've been in the business for a while, we want to know, well, why didn't you pass that? Why is the school still not getting funded for X, Y, and Z? And so we also, on our community bulletin boards, let our residents know that we're having candidates on. Please feed us your questions that you would like for us to ask the candidates. So utilize that community bulletin board. It's amazing how many people watch the community bulletin board. And as a programming director, I'm like, golly, who's sitting there watching the community bulletin board? But they watch it. They do. They watch it. People that watch community television are there watching it. Or if you find somebody that's channel surfing, the community bulletin board, if you keep it short and sweet, they'll respond. And we get some really interesting questions, and we keep them anonymous, or we just say a resident from Landover, Maryland wants to know X, Y, and Z. What are the steps that you could take in supporting your local news? Well, I think I kind of already explained it. The steps that you could take are get connected with every branch in your local government. Get connected with your school. Find out who are the PIO officers in your school department, within your schools. We have a great working relationship with the police department, unfortunately. We probably, right outside of Washington, D.C., we probably have at least 2 stories every day. If it bleeds, it leads. And so the police department keeps us pretty busy. We have a great working relationship, though, with our county, because a lot of the things that are happening in our county, the local affiliates are not covering it. And so they appreciate it when they see one of our reporters out there with our mic and our flag out there. They're calling us for events. We don't even have to kind of find out what's going on. They're calling us now. Hey, we're having a press conference, or, the county executive is planting a tree at James Madison Elementary School. That's all they need to say. They know that we're going to support them. Another thing that Mike said, which is really important, and we do have somebody that keeps our analytics for our YouTube and our Twitter and all those things. Social media, it's just so critical right now. All of our reporters are required to tweet, Facebook, Instagram, every top story. So they have requirements that they have to meet if they want to work in our news department. So every top story that they do, they have to tweet a headline, they have to do an actual live stand-up on Facebook, and as well as do an Instagram post. And it could just be a picture of whatever, and then at the end, those hashtags are so important. Catch it live on CTV tonight at 4:30. Hashtag CTV 4:30, hashtag whatever it might be. So everything is kind of coming back to us. in terms of just branding. So we really utilize social media a lot. The other thing that we do to support local news is that, and it's not just with your government officials and health department and things like that, is that we work with the community advocates out there. We call them the watchdogs, and they have the best stories. Those are the stories that a lot of people want to hear about that don't hear about, are your watchdog community advocates out there. So form relationships with them when they're having events. Since we're so close to Washington, D.C., and that blood is just flowing there, that our watchdog groups have a lot of events, a lot of meet and greets. We're out there, we're shaking their hands, we're letting them know, please, this is our business card, let us know if there's something going on in your community that we can cover that you would like for us to talk about. Our news director, of course, makes the final decision on if we're going to cover it. Blank screen, let's see what's going on. Well, I think this is just kind of a regurgitation of what I was just saying, is just kind of get connected with your school systems and your PIO officers, get connected with your major divisions in your local and state government. We have a great relationship with our state government as well, with our delegates and with our state senators, as well as with our governor. Attend important meetings, pressers, events within your community. And believe me, I know that we might be staffed a little heavy. And so we do have specific people, including me, that can go out to these events. And if we're just there for 15 minutes just to make a presence, just to let them know that we're there and that we're available to them, that's one way that you can build on your local news. Building your local news using social media. So even if you only have one person out there telling stories, tweet it, Facebook it, hashtag it. We all learn, I mean, even though you might not have a degree in journalism, those headlines are great little, we call them, just a tweet or hashtag, a catchy, eye-grabbing headline. And that's so important. Just use social media as much as you possibly can, even if you're not even going out in the field, even if you're just sitting by your desk, but you know that you guys are working on a story. So like Mike was saying, is that we do cross promote our different stories and our different things in our news department. And so a couple of years ago, we were finding out that, of course, because our police department was keeping us very active, we started doing, two reporters started doing an investigative report on our police department. And unfortunately, Prince George's County doesn't have a really good record with the African-American community. A county that was once predominantly white has gone through gentrification and now is predominantly African-American. And we told a 20-year story on that. It was a 10-part series. And we got such great response from the community on that. And so we cross-promoted using those packages that we did throughout the year and collaborating, and kind of did a more in-depth kind of docu-series on that. And interviewed police officers, white and black, from 20, 30 years ago that wanted to tell their story. And so doing docu-series is a really another way of working and getting that news out, and using your smaller packages to form something a little bigger. Another thing that we do, and I'm working on currently, is that we've been interviewing a lot of our vets. And this right now in the climate that we're in is, and I've been promoting this, I've been social media promoting, I'm not even finished. I've just been using little sound bites. Just all of our vets, our African-American vets that have served in World War I and telling their stories. You don't hear a lot about the African-American vets out there. And I've just been hashtagging it and tweeting it and Facebooking it and using little social medias. So build on little small projects that you think might be able to, bring more attention to your station, bring more viewership to your station. And kind of without being redundant, how do government and government-sponsored organizations, how do they utilize us? And like I said, we've formed a great relationship with our government, all of the branches of our government. But another thing that we do is that we allow the government to use our station, so to speak, even though, they give us, they help feed our pockets. But right now, sorry, that picture's not really good, but that is our county council chair. And so every term, when we get a new county council chair, they produce their own television show. And so they come in once a month, and they come in and we are just the production team for them. We execute their vision. And so 2 years ago, the county executive had his own show. And so, but every term, whoever is the county chair at the time, they are the host of that particular show. And so that's one of the ways that we've been able to form a really good relationship with the government, is kind of giving them, hands-on. We're just executing what they want for people to know in the county, in our county. And so that has worked really well for us. And the show is called Around the County. We collaborate with our local government in creating programs that highlight your local government. They love that. Make yourself available to the government at all times. We don't let them regulate us, but we most definitely allow and let them know that we are available for them. Promote your station's capabilities. And what I mean by that is that we might not necessarily, you might not be supporting our local news or on our local news, but because we consider ourselves a full production house, we let our government agencies, as well as our nonprofit agencies within our county, that we will collaborate with them. I just got done producing a really good 90-second public service announcement, so to speak, with the fire department. And when I sat down at the table with the chief and a couple of the other people, they were talking about suicide prevention. And during the months of April and May, suicide is really high. And I'm just sitting there and I'm listening as the producer. And then I realized that they weren't talking about resident suicide. They were talking about fire department internal suicide and prevention. And it really startled me. And it was educating to me. And when we actually aired that on our station and they aired it internally, man, we got blasted by every government agency because they saw the quality of our work and didn't realize that we are editing on Premiere, that we have people that do After Effects, that we have people that do animation. And so now we actually got a waiting list for people to, instead of going out to a paid production house, they can utilize their county, their state public access station. Our executive director keeps that to a minimal. But it's another just great way of forming a relationship with your local agencies out there. And again, have an open house. Collaboration. I think Mike and Erica both were saying that. We collaborate with everybody. Because we are out there, our local news is out there and our reporters are out there, some of the local affiliates don't get to come out to our county or they're covering something else. And so they use our footage. They'll collaborate with us and use our footage. I think we all know that some of the national stories the local affiliates will use that national story, but just take the reporter out. They do the same thing for us. And so we've formed a really good relationship with our NBC local affiliate. And so they will just basically voice it over. We'll send over the press release, we'll send over the script, and they'll use our footage and everything. So we've formed a really good working relationship and collaborating, not just on our news, but on a lot of the other programs that we have, that we produce on this station. Is that it? I think that's it. Yeah. Okay.
So I know it's 2:25, but does anybody have any burning questions? We can limit to like 4. So we'll go, who had their, well, you were like, woo. Here.
This is either for Gina or Mike. You heard I was working at Advocacy. We were doing weekly live news. It's rough as hell right now. It just got started. Curious, how much daily content would you say you guys are creating? Are these 30s? And what are your logistical requirements for this operation? So, what would your skeleton crew be to create a week of daily live news?
Our content is new every day, and I think that we can only do that just because we have the staff to do that. And so our news director, our day ends. We do a live show every day at 4:30. We're finished at 5. And our news director usually stays until about 7 o'clock building the show for the next day. And so he's pulling from press releases, all those other things, looking at the news, maybe something that is community oriented, a community event. And so it's the content it's new every day. It starts fresh every day. Some things are planned in advance, which really helps. Our reporters are required also to pitch stories. So every day at 9:30 we have a news meeting. We really try to give our reporters that come to our station, because they are coming to our station to go to a local affiliate. And so the experience that they get there is going to be just as comparable when you're making it when you're going to a local affiliate. So I hope I'm answering your question in terms of.
So the news is your news director the producer of all of the shows?
No, he's just the news director. We have 2 separate producers.
And they're alternating days.
And they alternate days. He kind of oversees everything. It is a desk-driven newsroom, meaning it's so he loves it when the journalists come in and pitch stories, but it's very desk-driven as well.
Do you pay reporters?
Yes.
So that's a key. I wrote down some questions, but
good question.
We have when we were doing the more frequently, we had a news director position, all that. We created small stipends of even just like $25 to $50 a story, and that was just motivation in and of itself. And that could be something that is funded through the grant, or you can figure out ways that sponsorships could offset that cost. But when there is money, there's an incentive for people to turn around a story.
Well, we have probably about, I'm in charge of the intern and volunteer program as well, but we have about maybe 5 interns just in our news department every spring, summer, semester. But yeah, the majority of our staff, they're paid, so that is.
Yeah, I would just maybe very nice to suggest building a better relationship with the journalism departments and seeing how what resources do they already have to get their students set up so they can kind of come in, and you're really just mentoring, and there's time commitment to that, right? There's the capacity concern, but part of being an intern is you're going to get something out of it as well, right? So a real.
Yeah.
Right, a real.
And we're similar. We have 9 people committed to news, and again, we've been doing it for 25 years. It's been a major commitment of our organization. There is a news director / gatekeeper in all of this, and but we just, like I said earlier, we stopped doing it live. People don't know if it's live or not anyway. We do a daily news show. We're taking that free time, some extra free time, and putting it towards content production. And again, I don't want to I know there's a lot of small systems in here. What is news? You don't have to do a full news program. News is something you didn't know, right? So do a news story, tell a story, and just get it delivered. Because like I said, we don't care where people see it. You can just produce one, even if you can only do 1 a week, just get it done and get it out there on the internet.
Other Karen.
Just a logistical question, you say something about posting daily videos on the city websites. How did you get permission to do that?
Well, the Wizard of Oz is in the back of the room. His name's Dave. He's going to be speaking on Friday, but he met with every single city, and they pretty much have given us the golden key to be able to do that. And that has worked, because there's not much they have to do. That certainly they do the final thing and just push it forward, but that is the secret sauce, and they make that happen.
They have time to say that.
Well, yeah, they don't have to take it. We put it there. They determine whether it will go through or not. You know, especially like it's some negative story about the city manager or something like that.
Joelle?
I was wondering if each of you could talk very briefly about where you're getting the money to do these shows, because it sounds like, especially if you have like 9 people, it might not be coming from franchise fees.
Yeah, we are blessed, okay? Actually, I prefer to stand myself so people can see people. We get the full 5%. So like Mike was talking earlier, he said, do you have a good relationship with your local government? Well, our local government is entrusting our organization to put out some really, you know, to have a public access commitment, to do all the community news, public affairs. We cover 9 city council meetings. So we get the full 5% of the franchise fee based on about 70,000 subscribers.
And like Mike, we are the same as well. We have a great relationship. We get the full franchise fee as well. And because we collaborate with the universities and the schools, we've applied for different grants that allow us to bring in money. So we have a great relationship with the local school department. We create programs and that brings in money.
The other thing I just failed to mention, very important, I wanted to mention in the presentation, we're experimenting now with monetization of the YouTube. We're doing Google AdSense where they're placing ad. Now again, because we can do this advertising, because we're looking at a world like, you know, if our channels go away, I mean, quite frankly, we're set to just do a total online version of what we do, and that's where the growth is going in our area. And then like I said earlier, we can sell eyeballs and, you know, we're going to do all kinds of things like seek grants and all these things, but we're trying to be set for long-term sustainability, because if this happens, if the worst case scenario happens, we want to still be operating.
Right. Yes, the last question.
Just very quickly. When you partner with newspapers, how do you discuss that partnership with them for them not to see it as your direct competition with the kind of content that you're trying to give to the community, but how it would benefit them as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's up to me, but I think, well, we had an initial conversation, and we put out in like an MOU style agreement of just like what the expectations were that we selfishly knew we wanted to get out of it, which ultimately is just increased outreach and visibility, because they have a unique, you know, their audience is a group of like people in Somerville we might not be reaching, and then they also laid out what they wanted. So I think coming to the table with clear expectations and letting that kind of formulate through the conversation is really important. And also just acknowledging that we're all kind of in the same struggle a little bit, right? And that this reporter, she has the ability to get out there and cover certain things that we just don't have the capacity to do. So if she sees the value in spending time with us a handful of times a month to help create multimedia content that we know we get to share, and it helps to, you know, it all goes back to like increased visibility and outreach engagement, it's a win-win. So I think looking at also, are there key stories coming up that you know you might want to collaborate around? Like the candidate profiles, we try to maintain like bipartisanship as much as possible, so we're actually having her lead some like candidate conversations as a newspaper. So if you want to like plan some events like outward, that could also benefit you all as kind of like a pilot, you know, phase of it. But then just as like issues happen, like the facial recognition, you know, she doesn't have the time to do a TV show or a video interview, and so it's come to be a meaningful collaboration where there's just, I don't know, that hasn't happened yet, right? Like we're not in competition, it's really merely to support one another. So I think just having that initial conversation could kind of
dismiss any of those concerns just like right off the bat, right? Thank you all for coming.